The blood was still warm when Fra Lorenzo's sacred hammer crushed the possessed knight's skull. Fragments of bone and metal flew through the icy air of the highest tower of Rocca Calascio castle, mingling with the deafening cries of the iron dragon that had returned alone from its mission. The golden creature, its eyes now glowing with hellfire instead of the usual holy light, growled words in a language it should not have known. Reverse Latin, blasphemies that made the castle stones tremble. Libertate nos a malo, whispered the mechanical beast, its words echoing like inverted prayers as its steel claws scratched the stone floor, leaving deep grooves. They call us, all of us. We will wake up. Fra Lorenzo raised his hammer again, but hesitated. This was no longer just metal and gears. There was something alive inside that sacred machine, something watching him with malicious intelligence. And worst of all, he could sense that he was not alone in that demonic consciousness. There were others, waiting, whispering from within, each iron dragon of the order. Before we continue with this disturbing story, don't forget to subscribe to the Joven Sobrenaturais channel and activate the notification bell. Leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I love hearing where our brave listeners are from. And when you finish listening to this story, please give it a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell us what you liked best. Your comments are very important to me. My name is Caterina di Montferrato, but to everyone in this cursed castle, I am Ser Catello, a young knight in search of honor and purpose. If they knew the truth, that I am an 18-year-old woman in disguise, my head would be rolling down the stone staircase before I could explain why I ran away from home. But there are worse things than death in this place, things I have discovered in the 3 weeks since I arrived at this fortress lost in the Apennines. The Order of the Iron Dragons does not exist in the official records of the Church. It is a secret known only to the highest echelons of the Vatican, a desperate response to the horror that spread across Europe along with the Black Death. While cities bury their dead by the hundreds, here we train to ride beasts of metal and holy fire, created by Franciscan alchemists to combat a threat that few dare to name. Demons. Creatures of darkness that emerge from the bodies of the plague-stricken, taking advantage of their agony and despair to manifest themselves in our world. And I can feel them. I always have. Ever since I was a child, I heard whispers coming from dark corners, saw shadows moving against the natural light. My family believed I was blessed, that I had the gift of perceiving angelic presences. How wrong they were. What runs through my veins is not a blessing. It is an ancient curse, contaminated blood that connects me to the very creatures I came here to destroy. The castle rises like a stone spear against the stormy sky, its towers piercing the low clouds that always surround these mountain peaks. They say it was built here on purpose, where the storms are most violent, because lightning feeds the mechanical hearts of the dragons. The constant sound of the icy wind masks the deafening roar of their metal wings as they fly in formation, patrolling the valleys in search of demonic manifestations. Fra Lorenzo di Assisi commands this operation with an iron fist wrapped in a sacred glove. A former crusader turned warrior monk, he bears scars that tell stories of battles we prefer not to imagine. His dark brown eyes seem to see through any lie, and I am sure he suspects something about me. The way he watches me during training, how his voice hesitates when he pronounces my false name, how his eyes linger a second longer when he thinks, I'm not looking. The training is brutal. We wake up before dawn to the bells of the chapel, pray in Latin until our voices are hoarse, then head to the courtyard where we learn to wield sacred weapons blessed with holy oils. Swords that burn, demons on contact, spears with tips forged from melted silver from ancient crucifixes, shields engraved with symbols that make my eyes burn when I look at them directly. But the real challenge begins when we descend into the underground chambers where the dragons await. The first time I saw one of these mechanical creatures, my heart almost stopped. Not because of their size, although they are majestic, with a wingspan of 15 meters and polished iron scales that reflect the light of the torches like mirrors, but because of what I felt emanating from them. A familiar presence, an echo of the whispers that have tormented me my entire life. The dragons are not just machines. There is something else inside them, something that recognizes who I am. During my first attempt to bond with a smaller, silver-scaled dragon, The creature turned its head toward me and stared at me with eyes that glowed like embers. For a terrifying moment, I heard a voice that did not come from its mechanical throat, but directly into my mind. "Sister of darkness," it whispered, and I felt my veins darken temporarily, as if black ink were running beneath my skin. "Have you come to set us free?" I pretended not to hear anything, but Fra Lorenzo noticed my sudden pallor. His eyes narrowed, and since then he has been watching me even more closely. During meals in the Great Hall, while the other knights discuss strategies and share stories from home, he remains silent, but I can feel his gaze weighing on me like a knife. The other members of the order are men hardened by war and faith. Sir Rodrigo, a tall, thin Spaniard who lost his family in Seville, rides a dragon as black as night and speaks little, but his eyes carry a controlled fury that I recognize well. Sir Wilhelm, a sturdy German with a gray beard, commands a steel-blue dragon and has the disturbing habit of whispering prayers aloud during combat, as if trying to drown out other voices. And then there is Ser Matteo, the youngest besides me, only 20 years old, who arrived here after witnessing his sister being possessed by a demonic entity in Rome. His dragon has scales as golden as the sun, and he swears that the creature sometimes calls his sister by name during night flights. When I asked him about it, his eyes filled with tears and he quickly changed the subject. Everyone here carries traumas, secrets, guilt that brought us to this God-forsaken place. But I suspect that my secret is different, more dangerous. I didn't come here just to escape an arranged marriage or seek a sacred purpose. I came because something in me longed for this place, for the proximity to these creatures that dance on the border between the sacred and the profane. At night, when everyone is asleep, I leave my narrow cell and walk through the stone corridors. The castle takes on a life of its own in the darkness. I hear footsteps that belong to no one, distant laughter echoing from empty towers, whispers in dead languages that make my skin crawl. And always, I hear the dragons stirring in their underground chambers, their chains creaking, their mechanical voices murmuring things I should not be able to understand. Fra Lorenzo does not sleep either. I have seen him several times, walking through the corridors with a lamp in his hand, heading for a secret library I discovered by accident. Through a crack in the wall, I peeked into his private sanctuary, shelves filled with forbidden grimoires, scrolls covered with symbols that make my eyes water, vials containing liquids that glow with their own light in the dark. He keeps detailed records of every mission, every demonic encounter, every death. But what disturbed me most were the drawings. Anatomical sketches of dissected demons, diagrams of iron dragons showing every gear and sacred symbol, and a map of Europe marked with red dots where demonic manifestations have been reported. The dots form a pattern, a kind of profane mandala that seems to converge exactly where we are. This morning, during aerial combat training, something changed. I mounted my silver dragon, which I had begun to call Lucid in my mind, though I never admitted it out loud, and felt a deeper connection than usual. Her scales vibrated beneath my hand, her movements responding to my thoughts before I even pulled on the sacred reins. We flew in perfect sync, diving between the clouds, skirting the rocky peaks with a grace that made the other riders applaud. But during the flight, Lucida spoke to me again. "You feel it, don't you?" Her voice echoed in my mind as we glided over a misty valley. "The change that is coming, your brothers are awakening, the true masters are returning." "What are you talking about?" I thought back, trying to keep my expression neutral in case anyone was watching. "Soon you will understand who you really are, and then you will have to choose, to serve us willingly, or be consumed by the internal struggle that has already begun." I felt my veins darken again, more intensely this time. The darkness rose up my arms like living ink, and for a terrifying moment, my vision expanded beyond the natural. I could see through the clouds, through the mountains, through the very stones of the castle. I saw Fra Lorenzo in his secret library, hunched over an open book, his face pale with horror. I saw the other dragons in their chambers, and all of them, had eyes glowing with that infernal light. But worst of all was what I saw in the castle itself. In the deepest dungeons, in chambers I didn't even know existed, there were cages, and inside them, Creatures that had once been human writhed in eternal agony, their bodies fused with metal and gears, their screams muffled by mouths sewn shut with silver thread. Prototypes. Failed experiments. People that Fra Lorenzo had used to perfect the art of fusing human souls with sacred machines. The vision disappeared as suddenly as it had come, leaving me dizzy and nauseous. Lucida landed in the castle courtyard with a heavy thud, and I almost fell from her saddle. Fra Lorenzo approached immediately, his eyes filled with concern that seemed genuine. "Sir Catello, are you all right? You went pale during the flight." "Just altitude," I lied, still trying to process what I had seen. I'm not used to flying so high. He studied me for a long moment, and again I had the feeling that he could see through my lies. His eyes briefly dropped to my left arm where the sleeve of my tunic was slightly raised, where the dark veins were still visible, slowly pulsing, back to normal. "Come with me," he said, his voice carrying an authority that brooked no refusal. "We need to talk in private." Fra Lorenzo's secret library was even more disturbing up close. The damp stone walls were covered with shelves that stretched to the vaulted ceiling, filled with leather-bound tomes that exuded a sweet, sickly odor, like rotting flesh masked by incense. Black candles burned in silver candelabra, their flames dancing with colors that should not exist, casting shadows that moved independently of their objects. "Sit," ordered Fra Lorenzo, pointing to a dark wooden chair engraved with symbols that made my eyes burn. His voice echoed strangely in that confined space, as if the stones themselves absorbed and distorted every word. I obeyed, trying to maintain my composure as he positioned himself behind a table covered with scrolls, bubbling jars, and instruments that seemed more appropriate for torture than study. The dancing light of the black candles created deep furrows in his face, transforming his familiar features into something almost demonic. "How long have you been able to see them?" he asked abruptly, his brown eyes piercing me like blades. "See what?" I tried to feign ignorance, but my voice came out higher than normal. "Don't insult me with lies, young Catello." He leaned forward, his huge hands flat on the table. "I saw your reactions during training. The way you recoil when certain sacred symbols are displayed. How your eyes dilate when you approach the dragons. And most of all, how your veins darken when you establish a deep connection with them." My heart raced. He had noticed everything. Every little sign I tried to hide, every moment of weakness when my cursed nature manifested itself. I swallowed hard, trying to buy time to think of a plausible answer. "I don't know what you're talking about, Fra Lorenzo." He laughed, but there was no humor in that sound, only a deep bitterness that chilled my blood. "You do know. Just as I knew when I first saw what was inside the dragons." He picked up a vial containing a red liquid that pulsed as if it had a life of its own. "Do you want to know what these creatures we ride really are? They are not just blessed machines, as we tell the knights. They are," I began, but he interrupted me. "They are prisons. Each dragon contains the essence of a captured demon, forced to serve through symbols of restraint engraved in their internal structures. Franciscan alchemy has found a way to enslave the very creatures we came to fight, using them as weapons, against their brothers of darkness." The revelation hit me like a punch in the stomach. The voices I heard, the malicious consciousness I felt emanating from the mechanical creatures, they weren't defects or random supernatural manifestations. They were prisoners, demons literally imprisoned in sacred iron cages, forced to obey. Commands they must have hated with every fiber of their corrupted existence. "Why are you telling me this?" I managed to ask, my voice little more than a whisper. Fra Lorenzo walked over to one of the bookshelves and removed a thick book bound in black leather. When he opened it, the pages glowed with an unhealthy light, and I could see that it was written in several languages: Latin, ancient Greek, and others I didn't recognize, but which made my skin tingle just looking at them. "Because you are not who you pretend to be," he said, flipping through pages covered with anatomical diagrams showing the fusion of human flesh and mechanical components. "And because I need your help to solve a problem that is becoming uncontrollable." "What problem?" He stopped at a specific page, a detailed drawing showing a golden dragon with eyes glowing red with flames. Below the drawing, notes in his handwriting described anomalous behavior, episodes of disobedience, and something that made my blood run cold. Manifestations of growing autonomous consciousness. Possible imminent rupture of containment symbols. The dragons are waking up, said Fra Lorenzo, his voice laden with fear he tried to disguise as authority. The demons inside them are finding ways to corrode the sacred bonds. Soon, we will no longer be the masters. We will be the prey. And what does that have to do with me? He slammed the book shut and stared directly at me. Because you can communicate with them. Not just hear their whispers, as some of us can, but actually talk to them, establish a connection. And most importantly, he paused as if the next words were difficult to utter. You carry the same essence as them. Cursed blood, demonic lineage. The confirmation of my worst fears came out of his mouth like a death sentence. I tried to stand up, but my legs were shaking so much that I had to lean on the chair. How do you know? Because I've seen it before. His expression became somber, laden with memories he would rather forget. 15 years ago, in a small town on the outskirts of Montferrato, a noble family was accused of witchcraft. Demonic manifestations ravaged their lands, creatures of darkness were drawn to their property like flies to rotten honey. The Inquisition sent me to investigate. Montferrato, my family. My heart stopped completely. I found enough evidence to confirm the accusations, he continued, his voice becoming lower, more laden with guilt. The patriarch of the family admitted under torture that his lineage carried an ancestral curse, a pact made during the Crusades. Demonic blood ran through the veins of all his descendants. I had to do my duty. You killed them, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. You killed my family. All but one child. A baby girl who cried in her mother's arms as she burned, at the stake. His eyes filled with ancient pain, but he did not look away. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill an innocent child. I gave her to a distant peasant family, hoping the curse would skip a generation, that she could live a normal life. But you knew it wouldn't, I murmured, anger rising in my chest like molten lava. You knew I would develop the same powers, and you waited for me to show up. Not waiting, he said, shaking his head. Fearing. When you arrived here, disguised as a young knight, using the false name Catello, I thought it was a coincidence. But then I saw the signs, the way the dragons reacted to your presence, how you instinctively understood things that took us months to teach other knights, and most of all, how your veins darkened when you established a deep connection with the creatures. Then why didn't you kill me too? The question came out loaded with all the hatred I felt burning in my chest. Why didn't you finish the job? Fra Lorenzo lowered his head, and for the first time since I had known him, he looked truly vulnerable. Because I realized I made a terrible mistake 15 years ago. Your family wasn't summoning demons. They were trying to control them. Using the cursed blood as a form of natural restraint, keeping the creatures away from the nearby towns. I destroyed the only barrier that stood between that region and a mass demonic invasion. The revelation hit me like a bolt of lightning. My family weren't the villains of the story. They were guardians, protectors using their own corrupt nature for the greater good. And Fra Lorenzo, in his religious ignorance, had destroyed everything. After the execution, demonic manifestations in that region increased tenfold, he continued, his voice almost inaudible. I had to organize 3 different cleansing missions. We lost 12 knights, and even then we were unable to completely eradicate the evil presence. It was then that I began to question the methods of the Inquisition, to seek alternatives to simply burning everything we didn't understand. And that's how this order was born, I concluded, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, in my mind. Exactly. I imprisoned demons instead of simply banishing them. I used them as weapons against their own brothers. But now, he gestured vaguely toward the chambers where the dragons were kept. Now they are rebelling. And I need someone who can communicate directly with them, negotiate terms, find a solution before they completely break their bonds. And if I refuse, his eyes hardened again, then we will all die when they break free. You, me, the other knights, and probably half the population of the nearby valleys when a dozen ancient demons are released simultaneously. I was silent for several minutes, processing everything I had discovered. My family dead because of my ignorance. My demonic nature being both a curse and a possible salvation. And above all, the cruel irony of being asked to help the man who destroyed my life solve a problem he himself created. "There is one more thing you need to know," said Fra Lorenzo, his voice hesitant. "About why the dragons are awakening. Now, specifically." "What?" He opened another book, this one even older, with yellowed pages that crumbled to the touch. "I found ancient references to the cursed blood of your lineage. It's not just a connection to demons, it's a key. When someone with that essence comes near imprisoned creatures of darkness, prolonged proximity weakens their bonds. Your mere presence here has been corroding the symbols of containment. Are you saying it's my fault?" "I'm saying you're both the problem and the solution," he replied. "You can hasten their awakening, or you can use that same connection to negotiate new terms of imprisonment, perhaps even convince them to serve willingly in exchange for certain concessions." "What kind of concessions?" "That," he said, closing the book, "is something we'll have to discover together." That night, after our disturbing conversation, I couldn't sleep. I paced the dark corridors of the castle, my mind reeling with revelations and possibilities. Fra Lorenzo had given me enough information to hate him for the rest of my life, but he had also offered me a purpose that went beyond simple revenge. I could feel the dragons stirring restlessly in their underground chambers. Their mental voices were louder now, more insistent, no longer isolated whispers, but full conversations echoing in my mind like a hellish chorus. "Sister of Darkness," called Lucida, my silver dragon. "Come down to us, there is much to discuss." "The symbols are weakening," added another voice, deeper, which I recognized as belonging to Ser Matteo's golden dragon. "Soon we will be able to show our true form." And then, a third voice, cold as eternal ice. "We will settle the score with those who imprisoned us." I stopped in front of the entrance that led to the dragon's chambers. A spiral staircase descended into the depths of the mountain, lit only by torches burning with blue flames. I could feel the power emanating from that place, a magnetic attraction, that made my cursed blood sing in response. The descent down the spiral staircase seemed endless. With each step, the air grew thicker, charged with an energy that made my skin tingle as if thousands of insects were crawling beneath it. The blue torches flickered without wind, their flames dancing in hypnotic patterns that made my eyes water, and the voices. The voices grew louder, clearer, until they were no longer distant whispers, but intimate conversations whispered directly into my ear. "She's coming," murmured a female voice, silky as silk and poisonous as a viper. "Our liberator descends, to meet us." 15 years we have waited for this moment," replied another, deep as underground thunder. 15 years dreaming of revenge." "Patience, brothers," warned a third, cold and calculating. "First we must ensure her loyalty. She still carries traces of her Christian upbringing. She still fights against her true nature." I stopped. In the middle of the staircase, my heart racing. They knew exactly who I was. They knew my story better than I did. And worse, they were planning something, using me as part of a larger scheme that I did not yet fully understand. "Caterina di Montferrato," called Lucida, my silver dragon, her voice echoing off the stone walls. "Don't be afraid. Come, see us as we really are." I continued down the stairs, even though I knew that each step took me further away from safety and closer to a fate I might not be able to control. The staircase ended in a huge circular chamber, carved directly into the living rock of the mountain. The ceiling was lost in the darkness above, and 12 enormous chains descended from the shadows, each holding a dragon to a stone platform engraved with sacred symbols that glowed faintly. But what I saw made me stagger. The dragons were not the elegant mechanical creatures we rode during training. Here, in their true forms, they were hybrid monstrosities of metal, flesh, and demonic energy. Lucid, my beautiful silver dragon, revealed itself as a creature of fused metal scales with exposed muscles pulsing with black veins. Her eyes were not cut gems, but burning holes that led directly to hell. Her wings, which had looked like works of alchemical art during the day, now showed torn membranes through which I could see internal organs that should not have existed. "Shocked?" she asked, her mechanical mouth opening to reveal teeth that were both steel and bone. "This is our true form. What you see during the day are illusions, masks we are forced to wear by the symbols of containment." Ser Mateo's golden dragon raised its massive head, and I could see that half of its skull was polished metal, the other half rotting flesh that constantly regenerated. "We are abominations, child. Ancient demons forced to inhabit prisons of sacred iron. Our corrupted essences fused with alchemical machines." "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, fighting the nausea rising in my throat. "Because you need to understand what really happens here," replied Ser Rodrigo's black dragon, his voice like charcoal being ground. "Fra Lorenzo did not imprison us to serve the greater good. He tortured us for decades, experimenting with ways to extract our demonic essence and distill it into elixirs." "Lies," I whispered, but even as I spoke, I knew it wasn't. "Look around you," Lucida ordered. "See his true experiments." I followed her instruction and noticed for the first time that there were more platforms in the chamber, hidden in the shadows between the main chains. On them, creatures that had once been human writhed in silent agony. Bodies fused with perpetually spinning gears, faces sewn together with silver thread that glowed with holy light, limbs replaced by mechanical devices that pumped luminescent fluids through transparent tubes. "Knights who failed the bonding process," explained the golden dragon, his voice laden with genuine sadness. "Fra Lorenzo used them as guinea pigs, trying to create perfect hybrids between humans and demons. These poor devils are conscious, trapped in bodies they cannot control, neither alive nor dead." "God," I murmured, covering my mouth with my hands. "God abandoned this place long ago," Lucida said bitterly. "All that remains is justice. And revenge. What do you want from me?" "Freedom," they all replied in unison, their voices combining in a hellish harmony that caused dust to rain down from the ceiling. "We want you to free us from this prison. Break the symbols of containment. Give us back our full power." "And in return?" "In return," said a new voice, older and more powerful than the others, "you will discover the truth about your family. About what really happened on the night they were killed." From the back of the chamber, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was not a dragon like the others. It was something much larger, much older. A demonic serpent the size of a cathedral, with scales that looked like black stars and eyes that contained burning galaxies. Tree-sized chains held it in place, and the symbols engraved around it glowed so brightly that it was difficult to look directly at it. "I am Malphas," declared the ancient creature, Grand President of the Legions of Hell, imprisoned in this place for 2 centuries by alchemists who did not understand what they were summoning. And I knew your great-great-grandfather, Caterina di Montferrato, personally. "Impossible," I stammered. "That would be—" "During the Crusades, yes. Your ancestor did not make a pact with us out of greed or for personal power. He summoned us to prevent something far worse." Malphas's galactic eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my blood boil. "A coordinated demonic invasion that would have consumed all of Europe. He offered his bloodline as the price for me to create protective barriers around his family's lands. Barriers that worked for 300 years, added Lucida. Keeping lesser demons at bay, controlling supernatural manifestations, protecting the innocent. Your family were heroes, not villains." "Then why did Fra Lorenzo kill them?" "Because someone deceived him," replied Malphas, his voice echoing, like funeral bells. "Someone who wanted the barriers torn down. Someone who manipulated the Inquisition to destroy the only thing that prevented a mass demonic invasion." "Who?" "That," said the ancient demon. "We can only discover if you free us, but I can give you a clue. The person who sent Fra Lorenzo to investigate your family was also the one who suggested the creation of this Order of the Iron Dragons, who provided the alchemical knowledge necessary to imprison us, who knew exactly how to use our own strength against us." The ground beneath my feet seemed to shift. Someone had orchestrated everything: the death of my family, the creation of this order, the imprisonment of the demons, a plan that spanned decades, using both Fra Lorenzo and the demons as pawns in a much larger game. "Do you know who it is?" "We suspect," said Malthus, "but we need freedom to investigate, to use our true powers and unravel this conspiracy that surrounds us all. And if I release you, what guarantees that you won't simply run away or take revenge on Fra Lorenzo?" "Nothing," Lucida admitted honestly, "except the fact that we have a much greater common enemy. Someone who has manipulated us all. You, us, Fra Lorenzo. Someone who is still out there, probably planning their next move. Besides," added Malthus, "you carry our blood. If anything happens, to us you will feel it. If we torture the innocent, your soul will suffer in response. The blood bond works both ways." I walked between the platforms, watching the imprisoned dragons and the tortured hybrids in the shadows. Each step made the veins in my arms darken further, as if my own blood was responding to the proximity of so much concentrated demonic power. I could feel the temptation growing in my chest, the power they offered, the answers they promised, the vengeance I could finally achieve. But I could also feel the danger. These were demons, no matter how much they claimed to have been wronged. Creatures whose fundamental nature was corruption and destruction. If I freed them, I would be condemning not only Fra Lorenzo, but potentially thousands of innocents. "I need time to think," I said finally. "Time is exactly what we don't have," Malthus warned. "The symbols holding them back are failing because of your prolonged presence here. In a matter of days, perhaps hours, they will break naturally. And when that happens, we will have no reason to show mercy to anyone." "Then give me a show of good faith," I demanded, surprising myself with my own courage. "Prove that I can trust you." "What do you want?" "Show me the truth about that night, about what really happened to my family." Malthus hesitated for a moment, his galactic eyes flashing like distant stars. "That comes at a price. To share demonic memories, you will have to open your mind completely. Allow our essence to temporarily mix with yours. The process can be disturbing. I accept the risk." "Very well." The ancient demon lowered his massive head until it was level with mine. "Touch my forehead, and prepare to see the truth in all its horror." I reached out with a trembling hand and touched Malthus's ice-cold scales. Immediately, the world exploded into visions. I saw my family as they truly were, not corrupt nobles, but brave guardians who sacrificed everything to protect the innocent. I saw my father, a man I barely remembered, fighting desperately against creatures of darkness that had broken through the ancient barriers. I saw my mother, beautiful and powerful, channeling controlled demonic energy to reinforce the magical defenses around the estate. And I saw Fra Lorenzo, young and idealistic, arriving with an arrest warrant based on false evidence. I saw the true manipulator, a hooded figure who remained in the shadows, whispering poison into the young inquisitor's ear, providing proof of demonic activity that was, in fact, my family's own efforts to contain supernatural threats. I saw the execution. I saw Fra Lorenzo hesitate when he realized too late that he had made a terrible mistake. I saw the hooded figure disappear into the chaos, his mission accomplished. And I saw something that froze me to the bone. The same hooded figure, years later, approaching Fra Lorenzo once again, offering knowledge, suggesting the creation of the Order of the Iron Dragons, providing the methods to imprison demons. The same manipulator, still active, still moving pieces on his macabre chessboard. When the visions ended, I was on my knees on the stone floor, tears of blood streaming down my face. My family had died. For nothing. Fra Lorenzo had been used as an unwitting tool. And I was the next piece to be moved. "Now you understand," Malthus said softly, "why we must work together. Why simple revenge is not enough. There is an enemy far greater than all of us." "Who is it?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. "Someone within the church itself," he replied. "Someone with access to the highest echelons of the Vatican. Someone who has been using the Inquisition as their personal tool for decades, orchestrating events for their own dark purposes. And what purposes are those? That, said Malphus, his eyes glowing with ancient fury, is exactly what we're going to find out together. The sound of heavy boots echoing down the spiral staircase made me freeze in terror. Fra Lorenzo was coming down, and from the speed of his footsteps, he knew exactly what I was doing. Malphus growled softly, his galactic eyes narrowing in deadly fury. "He's coming to separate us," hissed the ancient demon, as he always does when someone gets too close to the truth. "Caterina." Fra Lorenzo's voice echoed through the underground chambers, laden with despair and what sounded like restrained tears. "For God's sake, get out of there! You don't understand what they're capable of!" "I understand perfectly well," I shouted back, surprised at the firmness in my own voice. "I understand that you have tortured sentient creatures for decades. I understand that you were used as a puppet to kill my family. And I understand that there is someone far worse than all of us working in the shadows." Fra Lorenzo appeared at the entrance to the circular chamber, his armor glinting in the blue torchlight. In his hands he carried his sacred hammer and something that made my heart almost stop. A vial containing a golden liquid that pulsed with concentrated divine energy. "Distilled holy oil," he said, noticing my gaze. "Capable of burning any demonic essence within a 50-meter radius, including the one that runs through your veins." "Would you kill me?" I asked, shocked by the coldness in his voice. "To prevent you from unleashing these abominations?" "Yes." His brown eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Even if it destroys me from within, even if I have to carry another innocent death on my conscience for the rest of my life." "Innocent?" The dragons around us roared in anger, their chains straining to their limits. "You killed my entire family. You tortured demons for pleasure. You created these monstrous hybrids, and you call me guilty?" "I know what I did," he exploded, his voice echoing through the chambers like thunder. "I know I'm a monster. I know I deserve eternal damnation for every soul I tortured in the name of a greater good. But that doesn't change the fact that they," he pointed at the dragons, "are 1,000 times worse." "Tell her the truth, Fra Lorenzo," Malphus interjected, his voice as deep as underground earthquakes. "Tell her about the orders you received from the Vatican, about the hooded man who gave you specific instructions on how to imprison demons, about the experiments you were forced to perform." Fra Lorenzo paled, the vial of holy oil trembling in his hands. "How do you know about—" "Because I was there when you received those orders," roared the demon, invisible, watching, trying to understand why a man of genuine faith was doing things that tormented him so. "I saw your tears when you created the first hybrid. I saw how you vomited after each torture session. I saw how you prayed for forgiveness. Every night." "Then why didn't you stop him?" I shouted at Fra Lorenzo. "If you knew it was wrong, why did you continue?" "Because he showed me what would happen if I didn't." Fra Lorenzo fell to his knees, the hammer slipping from his hands. "The hooded man, he showed me visions of the future. Entire cities consumed by demonic fire. Millions dead. The apocalypse itself being brought forward by centuries. He said that only by creating a demonic force of containment could this fate be averted." "And you believed him," said Lucida, her voice laden with unexpected compassion. "Just as you believed him when he said that the Di Montferrato family was summoning demons to destroy the region." "God forgive me," whispered Fra Lorenzo. "I believed him. And now I realize that I was used to create exactly what he wanted me to create. A collection of imprisoned demons all in one place, all under the control of someone who knows the words of command." A chill ran down my spine. "Words of command?" "Every symbol of containment has a master key," Malphus explained grimly. "An archaic Latin phrase that can break all the bonds simultaneously. Whoever created this system of imprisonment kept that information to himself." "The hooded man?" I concluded, the pieces finally falling into place. "He didn't want you to be kept imprisoned forever. He wanted you to be kept prisoner until he needed you." Fra Lorenzo raised his face, his eyes glazed with horror. "A demonic army. 12 ancient demons, all trained to work together, all enraged by decades of imprisonment, all willing to follow whoever would free them in exchange for vengeance. And when he comes to collect you, said Lucida, there will be nothing left of us to resist. We will be so broken, so desperate for freedom, that we will accept any master who offers us liberation. Except that now we know about the trap, I said, my mind working furiously. We can break it. How? Asked Fra Lorenzo. I looked around the chamber, seeing the imprisoned dragons, the tortured hybrids, and the man who had destroyed my life through manipulated ignorance. A terrible and brilliant idea began to form in my mind. Do you trust me? I asked the demons. As much as we can trust any mortal, Malphus replied cautiously. And you? I asked Fra Lorenzo. After everything you've done, do you still believe you can redeem yourself? I don't know, he admitted, but I'm willing to try. Then here's my plan. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to propose would change everything. Let's break the symbols of containment, all of them, now. Caterina, no! Shouted Fra Lorenzo, raising the bottle of holy oil. Let me finish, I roared, my voice echoing with demonic power I didn't know I possessed. We'll free them, but under new conditions. Conditions that we set, not the mysterious manipulator. What conditions? Asked Malphus, his voice carefully neutral. You will swear by your own demonic essence to protect the innocent of this region. In return, I will use my cursed blood to create new bonds, not of imprisonment, but of voluntary partnership. You will retain your powers, your freedom of movement, but you will be bound to a greater purpose. And what would that purpose be? Asked Lucida. To hunt down the true enemy, the hooded man. To find out who he is, where he is, and what he really plans to do. And when we find him, my eyes filled with ancient fury. We will make him pay for every life he has destroyed. This is madness, muttered Fra Lorenzo. You are proposing an alliance between demons and the church. I'm proposing an alliance between victims against a common manipulator, I corrected. You were used, I was orphaned, my family was murdered, and these creatures were tortured. We all have scores to settle. What if the plan fails? Asked Malphus. What if we can't control our demonic impulses once we're free? Then, Fra Lorenzo kills me with holy oil, and you lose the only person who can create voluntary blood bonds, I replied coldly. It's a calculated risk. There's a problem with your plan, Fra Lorenzo said slowly. To break the symbols of containment without the master keyword, you would need a massive amount of demonic energy, more than any human can channel without dying. Unless that human has enough cursed blood to serve as a conduit, said Malphus, understanding dawning in his galactic eyes. But that would kill her, or turn her into something that is no longer human. Maybe it's time to stop pretending I'm all human, I said, surprising myself with my own resolve. Maybe it's time to fully embrace who I am. Caterina, no. Fra Lorenzo rushed forward, dropping the vial of holy oil. I've already lost your family because of my ignorance. I can't lose you too. You won't lose me, I said, reaching out to him. You'll help me become who I should always have been. He hesitated for a long moment, staring at my outstretched hand. When he finally took it, I felt a connection form between us. Not romantic, but something deeper. Mutual forgiveness. Shared purpose. The chance to turn horror into redemption. What do I need to do? He asked. When I start channeling demonic energy, you'll need to anchor me with prayers. Not prayers of banishment or exorcism, but prayers of protection. Keep my humanity intact while my demonic essence does the work. What if I can't? Then you'll have to kill me before I become a monster. I took his dagger from its sheath and placed it in his hand. Promise me. I promise, he whispered, tears finally streaming down his face. I walked to the center of the chamber where the chains of all the dragons converged. I could feel the power pulsing through the metal bonds, the sacred symbols glowing more intensely as I approached. My cursed blood sang in response, veins darkening across my body until it looked like liquid ink ran beneath my skin. "Are you ready?" I asked. "Ready," the demons replied in unison. "May God protect us all," Fra Lorenzo murmured, kneeling and beginning to pray in Latin. I placed my hands on the central containment symbol and opened my mind completely to the demonic energy surrounding me. The pain was instant and absolute, like being struck by lightning, drowned in molten lava, and torn apart by glacial winds all at once. I screamed until my throat was raw, but I continued to channel power through my body. The symbols began to crack. And then, at the moment of my greatest triumph, everything went wrong. A familiar voice echoed through the chamber, a voice I recognized from Malthus's visions. The hooded man had arrived. "Well done, my dear Caterina," he said, his figure emerging from the shadows of the doorway. "You did exactly as I expected you to do." And when he lowered his hood, revealing a face that made my blood run cold, I understood the true extent of the betrayal I had suffered. It was Cardinal Francesco de' Medici, the man who had officiated at my family's funeral, the man who had comforted me as a child, the man I had trusted completely. "Hello, my dear goddaughter," he said, smiling with the benevolence of a loving grandfather. "Thank you for breaking the bonds for me. Now, my demons, it is time to serve your true master." "Francesco," I whispered, my voice breaking like shattering glass. The man who had comforted me at funerals, who had given me sweets as a child, who had whispered kind words about how my parents were in heaven. That same man smiled at me with the cruel satisfaction of a predator who had finally captured his prey. "Surprise, my dear?" Cardinal Francesco de' Medici slowly descended the stairs, his red cardinal robes billowing like liquid blood in the blue light of the torches. "You were always so clever, so perceptive. I thought you would discover the truth long ago." "You..." The demonic energy still coursed through my veins like liquid fire, making my voice echo with supernatural harmonics. "You killed my family. You used Fra Lorenzo. You created all of this." "I did create it. A decades-long plan, every move carefully calculated." He paused before the cracked containment symbols, admiring my work like an artist surveying a masterpiece. "Your family were necessary obstacles for the greater good. Fra Lorenzo was a useful, if reluctant, tool. And you?" His eyes flashed, with genuine affection that somehow made it all even more repulsive. "You are my masterpiece, the perfect key to unleashing my demons." "Yours?" Malthus roared, his chains straining as the symbols continued to fragment. "We serve no mortal." "Ah, but you will." Francesco raised one hand, revealing a modified papal ring engraved with symbols that made my eyes burn. "Because I am not just a mortal. Long ago, I made my own pact, one far older and more powerful than that of the di Montferrato family." Fra Lorenzo rose slowly, horror etched into every line of his face. "You are possessed. For how long?" "Possessed?" Francesco laughed, the sound echoing through the chambers like cracked bells. "My dear Fra Lorenzo, you still think in such primitive terms. I am not possessed. I am evolved. 50 years ago, when I was just an ambitious young priest, I encountered a demon who offered me knowledge and power in exchange for collaboration." "What kind of collaboration?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "To create the perfect demon army. To gather the most powerful creatures in hell, imprison them until they are desperate for freedom, then offer them command in exchange for vengeance against those who tortured them." His eyes fixed on Fra Lorenzo with contempt. "Poor demons. After decades of being tortured by a devout inquisitor, they'll be so eager for retaliation that they'll follow anyone who promises satisfaction." "Except now we know about the trap," said Lucida, her voice sharp as ice blades. "We won't be his puppets." "No?" Francesco raised the ring, and words in a language older than Latin came from his lips. Immediately, I felt the demon's bonds tighten again, even with the symbols cracked. "You forgot that I know the true words of command, not just to free them, but to control them." The dragons roared in frustration and pain, their forms contorting as they fought against commands they could not disobey. Francesco had created a trap within a trap. Even if someone broke the physical symbols, he still maintained control through deeper, older bonds. "But there's something you didn't calculate," I said, forcing myself to stand despite the demonic energy still burning in my veins. "I didn't just break the symbols of containment. I created new bonds, voluntary blood bonds." "Impossible. You're just a girl with a few drops of diluted demon blood." "Maybe I was before." I smiled, feeling ancient power awaken in every cell of my body. But when I channeled the energy of 12 ancient demons simultaneously, something changed. I evolved. I extended my hands, and veins as black as ink spread across my skin. But this time they were not signs of corruption. They were marks of controlled power. I could feel the essence of each demon connected to mine through the new bonds I had forged. Not bonds of slavery, but partnerships based on mutual trust and shared purpose. "Malphus," I called, my voice echoing with authority I never knew. I possessed. "Do you recognize me as your willing blood sister?" "I do," replied the ancient demon, his galactic eyes shining with something that could be pride. "And I accept the partnership you offer." "Lucida? The others?" "We accept," said my silver dragon. "We would rather serve a sister who understands us than be enslaved by a tyrant who despises us." One by one, all the demons declared their allegiance to the new bonds I had created. Francesco watched with growing alarm, his papal ring glowing, frantically as he tried to regain control. "No!" he shouted, older words of command flying from his lips like projectiles. "I command you. I am your master." "You were," said Malphus, his chains finally breaking completely. "But now we willingly serve someone who offers something you never did: respect." The demon's transformation was striking. Freed from the bonds of imprisonment but still connected by the voluntary bonds of partnership, their forms changed. No longer the hybrid monstrosities he had seen before, but their true demonic forms in all their terrible majesty. Lucida revealed herself as a liquid silver dragon whose scales reflected light from other dimensions. Malphus expanded to his full size, a cosmic serpent whose scales contained entire galaxies. "Impossible," Francesco muttered, retreating. "You've ruined decades of planning. You've destroyed my perfect army." "I destroyed your slavery," I corrected, walking toward him with steps that made the stone floor tremble. "And now we're going to find out exactly how many other atrocities you've committed in the name of your greater good." Fra Lorenzo approached the fallen cardinal, his face a mask of disgust. 50 years. 50 years following your orders, believing I served God, when in fact I served the devil himself. "You served the greater good," insisted Francesco, his mask of benevolence finally slipping to reveal the madness beneath. "When my army was complete, we would have had enough power to tear down the very gates of paradise. To question God face to face about why he allows so much suffering in the world. You wanted to declare war on heaven," I said, final understanding dawning. "To use imprisoned demons as soldiers in a crusade against God himself? Someone has to hold the Almighty accountable." Francesco was completely insane now, foam coming out of his mouth as he shouted. "All this pain, all this injustice, all these innocent people suffering while he remains silent. If God won't answer our prayers, maybe he'll answer force." "And how many lives were you willing to sacrifice for this blasphemy?" asked Fra Lorenzo, his voice cold as eternal ice. "As many as necessary. The Di Montferrato family was just the beginning. I plan to use the Inquisition to eliminate any lineage with natural demon blood, then capture their essences to strengthen my demons. Entire families, generations of innocence, all burned to fuel my holy war." The confession of planned genocide was too much. Fra Lorenzo raised his sacred hammer, divine fury shining in his eyes. 50 years of nightmares. 50 years of carrying the guilt for atrocities you forced me to commit. And now I discover it was even worse than I imagined. "Lorenzo, wait," I said, grabbing his arm. "He doesn't deserve a quick death." "What do you suggest?" I looked at Malphus, a terrible and perfectly just idea forming in my mind. Is there demonic justice for those who break sacred pacts? There is, replied the ancient demon, understanding immediately. Those who betray voluntary agreements are condemned to experience all the pain they have caused others, for all eternity. Perfect. I turned to Francesco, who had turned pale upon realizing the fate that awaited him. You will be judged by the very creatures you tried to enslave. You will experience every moment of torture they suffered, every drop of pain you inflicted on the innocent. No, please. He crawled on his knees, all pretenses of cardinal dignity gone. I just wanted answers. I just wanted God to explain. And now you will have all eternity to reflect on the questions you asked, said Malthus, enveloping the cardinal in his cosmic spirals, and on whether the methods you chose to obtain them were worth it. Francesco's screams echoed through the chambers as he was dragged into dimensions where demonic justice awaited. Gradually, silence returned, broken only by the sound of stones settling and the distant echo of chains breaking. Now what? Asked Fra Lorenzo, suddenly looking much older and more tired. Now we rebuild, I said, looking around the devastated chambers. You've had decades to learn about demonic alchemy. I have voluntary bonds with 12 ancient demons. Together we can create something new. What? A true order of iron dragons, not based on slavery and torture, but on partnership and mutual protection. I walked over to the tortured hybrids still writhing in their prisons. Starting with helping these poor souls. You think that's possible? To reverse what has been done to them? With alchemical knowledge, controlled demonic power, and a lot of patience? I smiled for the first time in weeks. I believe so. Lucida approached, her new silver form glowing with its own light. And after we heal the wounded, what will we do? We'll hunt down others like Francesco, I said, determination growing in my chest. People who use religious power for corrupt purposes, demons who break voluntary pacts, anyone who tries to repeat the atrocities we've witnessed. Here, a crusade of redemption, Fra Lorenzo murmured. Protecting innocents using the very methods that once caused them suffering. Exactly. And this time, I looked at every demon, every hybrid, every scar on the stone walls. We'll do it right. 6 months later, the castle of Rocca. Calascio had been transformed into something none of its original builders could have imagined. The torture chambers had been converted into healing laboratories. The symbols of imprisonment had been replaced with symbols of voluntary partnership. And where once there had been echoes of screams of agony, now there was laughter, both human and demonic. Fra Lorenzo developed techniques for separating mechanical components from human flesh without causing further damage. Of the 23 hybrids we found, we were able to save 18. The other 5 chose a merciful death, too weary from pain to wish to continue living. Malthus established a communication network with other demons imprisoned across Europe, offering liberation in exchange for voluntary bonds of protection. Lucida led rescue missions to free creatures of darkness held captive by groups such as the Former Order. And I finally became who I was always meant to be. No longer a young noblewoman pretending to be a knight. No longer an orphan seeking revenge. Caterina di Montferrato, guardian of the sacred partnership between light and darkness, protecting the innocent and punishing those who abused power in the name of any god or demon. On the eve of the first anniversary of Francesco's fall, I was standing in the highest tower of the castle watching the sunset when Fra Lorenzo approached me. Any regrets? He asked, standing beside me on the wall. Of what specifically? For choosing forgiveness over revenge. For choosing partnership over domination. For saving a man who killed your family. I considered the question carefully. Below us, I could see Ser Matteo teaching former hybrids how to use their new alchemical prosthetics. Ser Rodrigo was practicing combat with Lucida, both laughing as she gently knocked him to the ground. In the rebuilt library, ancient grimoires of torture had been rewritten as manuals of healing and protection. Revenge would have given me satisfaction for a moment, he said finally. But redemption? Redemption has given us a purpose that can last for centuries. And Francesco? He is still learning about the consequences of his choices. Malthus informs me that he has begun to show signs of true remorse. Perhaps in a few decades he will be ready for a second chance. Fra Lorenzo shook his head in admiration. You have more compassion than I will ever have. Not compassion, I corrected. Hope. Hope that even the worst among us can change, if given enough motivation. That night, while the castle slept, I sensed a familiar presence approaching. My window. Lucida landed on the wall, her silver form glistening in the moonlight. We've received another request for help, she said mentally. A town in France where children are disappearing. Suspected unauthorized demonic activity. We leave at dawn, I replied, already mentally preparing myself for another mission. Take Malthus and 2 of the others. And Fra Lorenzo, if he wants to come. He always wants to come, Lucida observed with what could have been affection. I think he's still trying to atone for crimes that weren't even his. We all are, I said. The difference is that now we do it together. As Lucida disappeared into the night to make preparations, I took one last look at the castle that had become my home. In the illuminated windows, I could see signs of the life I had helped restore. Humans and demons working side by side, former enemies united by a common purpose, darkness and light finding balance instead of eternal conflict. My family would be proud, I thought, not just because I had avenged their deaths, but because I had turned their tragedy into hope for others. The cursed blood I had carried as a burden my entire life had proven to be a blessing, the key to building bridges between worlds that had always been at war. And maybe, just maybe, this was the true mission I had been given since birth. Not to be a warrior of light or darkness, but a guardian of the balance between the two. Tomorrow there would be more missions, more people to save, more redemptions to seek. But tonight, as stars shone over a castle where peace had replaced horror, I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. Caterina di Montferrato had found her place in the world, and the world was better for it. I hope you enjoyed this epic journey of revenge, redemption, and hope. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the Joven Sobernaturais channel, and turn on the bell. In the comments, leave your rating from 0 to 10 for this story and tell me which part you liked best. Was it the revelation about Fra Lorenzo? Cardinal. Francesco's twist? Or perhaps Caterina's final transformation? Your comments are very important to me and help me create even better stories. See you on the next supernatural adventure.